Alright, today we're talking about the playing feel and ergonomics of the Abasi Concepts Larada, specifically the 8-string model. This is not really a review of the guitar at all. I have reviewed this guitar several times, initially and a follow-up. This is more talking about how it feels to play these. So how it feels against the picking hand, the playing hand, how it sits against your body, etc. I gotta say that I am not sponsored by any of the brands shown in this video. I do like these guitars. As you can see, I'm some guy on the internet who clearly likes guitars. And I'm not in some amazing touring band or some kind of virtuoso. I'm doing the casual music thing, making YouTube videos, putting original songs out and a bunch of cover songs. I'm on streaming services, etc. So let's jump right in. Let's talk about the body shape and where the output jack is. You could see it's a single cut kind of body shape, and the output jack is right here on the back. So the cable sits like this. It doesn't get in the way if you're playing the classical style sitting down seated or playing standing up, so the cable comes out right through here. The body shape itself has that overhang for the single cut, but because especially the 8-string model has a wider neck, naturally it makes you play thumb behind the neck and you can slide right on in right there because you do have this kind of cutaway right here, this kind of shelf. So the black model I have right here is my most recent one, and this one I got like 2.5, almost 3 years ago. And they've either made changes between the iterations or they have different builders, but there's more room on the black one than here on the gold one. So you can see the thumb space goes past the neck right here, so it is especially comfortable right here. But on the gold one here, it is still entirely possible to get your thumb behind right there. It's a little easier on the black one, but here it's just fine too. And so let's talk about more the playing feel for the fretting hand. This guitar does require thumb behind the neck playing, so you can't really do the Hendrix wrap. Here you can see I'm kind of stretching my hand to do it, but obviously you can't do it when you're playing in the upper register. So when playing, it is pretty easy to get to the 24th fret, the top fret. The lower horn will get in your way slightly if you're doing super extreme thumb behind the neck, but for typical playing, you can see the hand position, it doesn't hit it at all. And you can see also on the back of the lower, there it is, the lower horn, there is this kind of contour, this carve away too. So it doesn't really get in your way. And of course, if you're used to a neck heel, whether it's the Fender, like kind of square heel, or the Ibanez all-access neck joint, of course, because there's no neck joint here, this is super easy to do, hitting the 24th fret. In playing in the upper register though, especially, you can see because it has this multi-scale, the frets do angle away from you here up top. So when you're looking down, it is harder to see what you're playing. And you do kind of get used to it. But if you're more used to a more uniform scale length, or if that's something you prefer, this will always take some getting used to. You're always going to have to look down and see what you're doing, especially because there are 8 strings. When you look down, you have to look past all the strings to look where you're playing. As they say, practice makes perfect, and when you practice a part and you can play it without looking, that's great. But there are going to be those moments where you do get lost or something happens and you get distracted, then you need to look down at what you're playing. So that may be a difficulty if you're looking for a multi-scale 8-string guitar like this. And you could say that would impact the playing experience, which is what we're talking about. And speaking of multi-scale, let's talk about how it feels playing for the picking hand. And this bridge here, because of the multi-scale, it is angled. So when you're picking, you can see your picking arm will naturally follow the shape of the bridge and on this bevel here. So picking is just fine like that. If you are palm muting though, you do have to get used to the bridge being angled away. It's not impossible, and it's not as difficult to get used to as looking down at the angled frets, but it is a little difference. Like, I'm not going to tell you it's completely negligible. It will always be something you'll have to get used to if you're switching between this and a guitar with a uniform scale length. Of course, the bevels are pretty nice. They're pretty deep, so even though this is a beast of a guitar, it feels pretty great against your body. It doesn't get in your way at all. It makes it feel a lot thinner than it really is. Because the bevels are so tall too, it helps your forearm anchor the guitar against you, as you could see. Now back to the bridge. Another point about the bridge is to keep this guitar a sane size. It's about a similar size as a typical Super Strat. The bridge is all the way back here. So if you're used to something like an SG, where it has the bridge way forward, then this is going to feel completely different. And not just because it has 8 strings and stuff. Other notes for the picking hand, you could see the pickups follow the angle of the multi-scale, which is good. It makes it so the bridge and neck pickups will sound as you would expect them to. But it does mean if you're picking and you're getting up here, you are likely to hit these pickups if you're picking really hard digging in. Maybe that's not the best form, but adrenaline can take over. It can happen. And also, I've been working on improving my picking technique over the years, but if your fingers do come out, they are going to feel the bottom of this pickup. You can kind of see it's gotten a little shiny from me touching it. And finally, the controls. Let's talk about the volume potentiometer and the blade switch. Now the volume pot, the knob is definitely out of the way. It's way far out there. It does have the voice control. It's a push-pull. I don't really notice too much of a difference. I've covered this in my reviews. But I don't notice too much of a difference in the sound. But it's there. It's pretty easy to go and grab whatever. Now the blade switch, though, it's interesting because the switch is parallel with the neck. It's not angled up. So that is something you do have to get used to. You could see you can switch it fairly easily, but if you're switching to the neck, you do have to push out a bit, and then going to the bridge, you have to kind of pull in. So it's not the most natural motion is the thing. It's not impossible, but if you're used to the switch being this way and you do lots of quick switches, that might trip you up a little bit, or it might always annoy you every time you try to switch the pickups. I can see why they did it this way, because I never hit the switch when I'm picking, even when I'm playing leads. And this lets the switch be all the way down here on the body, but when you're switching then, it is kind of a little bit annoying. So let's talk about seated playing, how this kind of guitar feels to play sitting down. When you're seated, the bevels are comfortable, so every position will feel pretty natural. You're not going to be reaching over any sharp edges or blocky body. You have full access to all the strings. You can play the guitar seated in the standard seating position just fine. You can play it in the classical position too. And again, the cable isn't going to be getting in your way because it's angled up this way. This guitar is especially friendly for the classical position because of this shape of the bottom right here. Now, in my opinion, it does look pretty cool, but the functionality of the guitar should always come first over how it looks. To an extent, like if your guitar is super ugly to you, you might not be motivated to pick it up and play it, but I think this guitar looks pretty cool. But the function behind that is pretty valuable, and it helps to be able to easily play in any position. I know Flying V players are mad right now because they're used to playing in just like one position sitting down, but I think you get what I mean. And speaking of Flying Vs, you can have the guitar more upright when you're sitting down, as if you were playing a Flying V off your leg. And that is because of the bottom of the guitar, the shape of it. So you have a lot of options when playing seated down. There's a lot of functionality built into it. Again, it's not the best for the thumb over the neck, if at all, but you can seat the guitar in any position you need to really get your thumb behind the neck comfortably. And that's really important when you're trying to be creative, when you're trying to record different parts, I think. It's really important the guitar's not getting in your way. So if you're playing leads or chords, if you're trying to record down an idea before you forget it, or you're on a tight deadline to deliver something, the guitar really isn't going to impede you as long as you're playing that thumb behind the neck style. You know, this guitar isn't just made for the low string 00s. It's got the multi-scale, so you can play your leads with a sane scale length. And the strings are meant to be options to use. Of course, you can play the 00 stuff if it does make you happy. It is fun to do every now and then. But you have lots of options, and when you're playing seated down, so if you're practicing, or maybe you're focusing to record some songs to release, this guitar would be a good choice for that. In fact, the background music for most all of my videos was recorded on this guitar. And it's not just the heavy metal stuff, it's also the ambient cleans, the background music. The world is your oyster with all these possibilities. Alright, so let's talk about the playing feel when you're standing up with this. Now, because it's a more thumb behind the neck guitar to play, you are going to want to have your strap medium length to higher length to really have your wrist be comfortable. If you have the guitar lower, you are going to have to start to bend your wrist a lot, and that might not be the most comfortable. What's nice about the output jack being angled up is that the cord will be facing upward, so if you accidentally step on it, it's less likely to be able to be pulled out. Typically, if you're playing like a Super Strat or another guitar, you'd have to wrap the cable around the bottom of the strap button, but here you don't really have to do that. So what are my overall thoughts on the ergonomics and the playability of the Abasi Concepts Larada 8-string? I think the design is great in that it makes an 8-string manageable. It's not this giant, super heavy guitar. My heaviest guitars are actually my 7-strings. Now, I love playing 7 strings, but my heaviest guitar is a Solar T1.7, and It plays nice. I love it to death. I've used it a bunch, but there's no denying it is a very heavy guitar, and it's very long too. Although I think my longest obviously is my Schecter, my E7, the Explorer, just because the Explorer, the back horn and the baritone scale length, it has the 26.5-inch scale length. That just makes the guitar really long. So compared to those, this is super manageable, which is crazy because it has a whole nother string and a longer scale length on the bottom. So the compact body is nice. It's not too heavy. It's a typical guitar weight. And the bevels too give a nice playing experience. Now, if you're used to like the Telecaster block body, obviously this is going to feel really weird. You're not going to have that edge to be able to angle the guitar, or even like a Super Strat like an RG. It does have that kind of edge to it. So even though it has the forearm carve, you can still push the guitar to angle it and angle the fretboard to see. So this doesn't really have that. You kind of have to bend your body a bit if you want to see more of the fretboard. So barring that though, overall I'd say this is a very ergonomic kind of guitar, a very modern guitar. It's nice that the body shape allows you to play in any position, whether it's the standard, the classical, over here, standing up, you can play it, just as long as you have it high up enough on the strap. So there you have it. Did I answer all your questions? Do you have any other thoughts or comments? Leave them down in the comment section below. You know, this is YouTube. I have to say the YouTube things. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share the video, print out every frame and mail it. And as always, peace.